Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors, and without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled Neighbor's Barking Dog. I was living in one of the original single wides while building our house. There was a good amount of snow on the ground and it was about 3 inches at night. Every sound was amplified. Neighbor's dog was an outside dog with a heated house. It barked all the time. If a dog barks for 5 minutes or longer, you can log it. When you turn the log in, a judge can charge them $50 per incident. I was up to 20 to 30 logs a day, lasting 5 minutes to a couple hours. I was not even home all day, she was super poor, and I did not want to go this route. After 3 weeks of my husband and I getting no sleep, we had begun to fight a lot and I was not getting anything done because of being sleep deprived. I was daydreaming of tackling the dog and putting a shock collar on it. In the end, every time the dog barked at night, I would put on a sweatshirt, crunch 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 my way to her house and bang on the door until she answered. Her, what? Me, your dog's barking. Her, oh, I did not hear him. Me, turn and leave. By the 3rd time she answered her door. Me, your dog is barking. Her, why do you keep doing this? Me, it's not my dog, it's yours. If I am up because it's barking, so are you. I have not slept in over 3 weeks. This is how neighbors get murdered. It took her 4 nights to break and do something about her dog. A couple times I had to pound on the door for several minutes with my breath freezing in my lungs, but it was worth it. And guys, I gotta say, barking dogs can definitely be a nightmare, especially if you are recording for YouTube and your microphone is super sensitive. Do you have any sort of big noise pollution in your area / around your house or apartment? Let us know what bothers you. The next one is titled Send New Neighbor to the Police Station for a Few Hours. We live in an apartment block and occasionally have new people move in and out. Yesterday we encountered a new resident, a short red-haired lady who, through dwarfism and food, manages to be about as white as she is tall. My boyfriend greeted her with a simple hello. He also tried to say welcome, but she cut him off with, "Shut up, I don't know you." Okay, not the sociable type, neither are we. Let's not get friendly then. Today, when returning from grocery shopping, we found her trying to pick the lock with what looks like a piece of a paperclip because you know that is going to work, and she's apparently been at it a while because we could open the door with our key. A patrol car stopped and an officer called out to her. We stopped to watch because, well, it was happening. The officer asked her why she was breaking in, to which she responded she lived here. She turned to us and said, "They know me." Boyfriend smiled and said, "I don't know you." We entered the building after the officer asked us to confirm, and boyfriend repeated, "We don't know her." Can't wait to have more contact with her. And guys, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments and also like the video if you want to support me. Thank you very much. Let's try to beat the YouTube algorithm and reach 1000 likes. That would be awesome. And the next one is titled Neighbor Threatens to Sue Me for Something Ridiculous, so I take action first. Little backstory, but I own a twin home by myself. The other side of the twin home is rented by 3 guys in their early 30s. Earlier this year there was an incident where one of the roommates ruined basement carpet by leaving his sump pump hose laid against my house. Whatever a sump pump is, I'm not sure. Either way, it was an honest mistake, but he refuses to pay for the damages, so a court case is ultimately upcoming, but I have yet to file the paperwork for it. So as you can imagine, things are a little tense between us at the moment. Now that that is out of the way, onto the story. This past weekend, a friend of mine ran into one of the roommates that lives next to me. Neither of them realized that they knew me, but after a while they found out that they both knew me. My neighbor then went off saying, "I'm the neighbor from hell," because I plan on taking the other roommate to court to recover my costs for the basement. He said that if I do go through with the lawsuit, that the homeowner they rent from is going to sue me back, claiming the deck on my house is not up to code. To the best of my knowledge, you cannot sue someone for that since it is not causing you any financial harm and they are not the building police. However, just in case something did come about, I checked property records and verified that all permits and inspections were properly done for my deck, so I am covered. But this got me thinking, last summer my neighbors built their deck, so I checked with the city and discovered that no permits were filed for it. So guess who's going to be getting a visit from the city building inspector later this week? Ultimately, it may result in them having to tear it down completely, but more likely is that they will just have to pay a fine. Too long didn't read, neighbor threatens lawsuit for something when he's the one guilty of the accusation. Update, just got an email back from the city. They said they will contact the homeowner about the permit situation. They did not really provide any other information beyond that. I guess I will just have to keep an eye on the local city page and check for building permits/fines or something. And the next one is titled Neighbors from Hell. I took care of it. I was 14. My neighbors and I would always feud. I would get in physical fights with all of their kids. They ranged from a juice pig failed out cop turned security at 21, a 16-year-old drug abusing loser, a 14-year-old who knew it all, and a 12-year-old who had a crush on my sister. They were all pigs, always leaving trash to blow freely in their yard, never taking their shoes in the house, parking on our lawn, shoveling their gravel-filled snow into our lawn, etc. I was smaller than the 12-year-old boy by a few inches, so I was an easy target. I think the whole thing started over street hockey. I scored on the 14-year-old brother and they said I cheated. The 16-year-old and 14-year-old got a good idea in their head one day. Jump me while I was walking back home from uptown and make me eat grass while working on my kidneys. When I stood up, they threw me into a rose bush. I ended up getting bit by a few wasps. I ended up at the hospital, nothing too serious, just a few scars, had to have a thorn removed from my eye, blah blah blah. So I got into their shed and removed the nut that holds the front tire to the bike. The 16-year-old did a wheelie and nothing happened. The 14-year-old jumped a ramp and the front wheel came off. He went to the hospital. I thought it was finished after that. My parents had left with my sister to go to a hockey tournament. The neighbors thought I went with them. Their parents were also leaving for a week for vacation. The night their parents left for vacation, they threw food, coloring, rocks, broken bottles, boxes of street chalk and bags of flour into our pool. The oldest brother then drove them off somewhere for the week. Instead of vandalizing my neighbor's house in retaliation, I vandalized my own even more. I threw eggs, wet paper and flour at my house and up on the roof. I threw hairspray-soaked lunch meat on the truck, van and jeep. And I let the air out of all the tires. I made sure I did it all from angles that would be from their property for the majority of the attack. I used their shoes to muck through my mother's garden to get to the driveway. And then it rained. The flour turned to dough, the eggs rotted, the paper turned into a glue, and then the sun baked it. It ended up creating a few $1,000s worth of damage from what I did. The pool had to be drained and the pump and liner had to be replaced. I waited until my parents got home. They called the police took my statement, and then they waited for my neighbors to get home. We all had a sit down. There was no disputing the damage. I had pictures of them trashing the pool, throwing objects over the fence. My camera did not have a complete roll of film, so I could not document the whole thing. What I did though was enough to convince the police and the insurance company as well as the neighbors that their kids were completely guilty. The neighbors agreed to pay for all the damage as long as we did not press charges. We got a new deck, new paint on the home. My father hand painted the cedar siding of a 2,700 square foot home every 3 years until he decided to go maintenance free. And new shingles for the roof. The cars were repainted and the pool was repaired and refilled. 2 months later, the neighbors moved. I have no idea what happened to any of them. This was back in 95 until 97-ish times. The pool, water and pump were about $6,500 to replace. The roof was about $7,000. The neighbor used his brother-in-law to do the work while my father supervised. The deck was just replacing the surface boards. My father liked the spacing to be tight, so the framework did not suffer too much damage. About $1,000 for lumber. My father used his old neighbor and my mother's cousin to do the bodywork on the vehicles. I think it was about $3,000 total for the vehicles. The house painting was done by my neighbor's company. My dad figured it took him $700 to $900 worth of paint and scaffold renting to do it himself, so the company would be a bit cheaper. This one is titled "Neighbor's Irresponsibility as a Pet Owner Caused My Poor Senior Cat to Suffer Through His Last Year." Posted by user Matsuorific on our own subreddit r/ripe stories. And guys, just a little trigger warning, this one is quite a sad story. So if you cannot handle sad stories about animals, please don't watch. Either way, this story breaks my heart and I am already tearing up just at the start. Honestly, I worry if I will even be able to finish writing this out because of how emotional I get remembering my sweet baby boy. When I was in 7th grade, my dad took me to the shelter to adopt a new kitten. I've always been a huge animal lover and have grown up around them my entire life, but have always had an affinity for cats. They took me to the kitty playroom and sat me down in the middle. It was winter, so I still had my coat on. I saw a bunch of really cute kittens, but none stood out more than this little black and white kitten they called Todd. Todd immediately started nuzzling me and kept getting into my coat. He would start from one side and work his way to the other and then go back the way he came. When he was done exploring my coat, he plopped himself right in my lap and started purring. I knew he was the one. I knew I did not want to keep the name Todd, so we started referring to him as the cat, until I could come up with a name for him. And one day I was watching Pokemon Mewtwo Returns on Cartoon Network while playing with the cat on the floor, when suddenly Brock started hitting on the new female character named Domino. Brock: "Oh Domino, so black and white and yet so playful." Me: "That's it, Dad, I figured out the cat's name." So yes, my cat was named after a villain in Pokemon. I was 12. Domino and I grew up together. He got into his fair share of mischief, but he was a sweetheart who would not hurt a fly. He was a bit shy when he was younger, but opened up more to strangers in his old age. One of my fondest memories of him was when my grandpa came to visit. One of Domino's favorite games was to sit behind this couch we had with an open back and stick his paw through the cracks in the cushions and dare you to grab it. He was of course afraid of my grandpa at first, but they bonded over this game, and that was the first time I had ever seen Domino open up to someone who was not me or my dad. My stepmom, note monster if you have read my Just No Mother-in-Law stories, did not like him, but Domino always wanted to play with her when he got older. She swore up and down that my precious sweetheart with no claws, not my decision, and the softest bite you ever did not feel, was attacking her when would jump at her. He did this to me a lot more than he did to her, not because he was violent or hated me, but because he just wanted to play. She refused to believe it though, and swore he just did not like her. Yeah, no, that was me who did not like her. But yeah, I loved that cat. He was with me through so much and was always there for me when I needed him. Especially when, note monster, would make me cry. But you are not here for my sweet cat story, you are here to find out what my neighbor did to him. I was in my early mid-20s when I moved with my neckbeard boyfriend. I had been in a studio before within the same complex, but never really saw the need to move out of this one bedroom after my boyfriend got fed up with me not putting out whenever he felt the urge, which was 24/7. Now, because of the way this complex was set up, we were in a row of 4 people on our side, 4 people on the other, and I was in the back corner, which was great because it meant I did not have to worry about people walking by and waking me up in the middle of the day. I work nights. My neighbor lived in the apartment just next to mine, along with her little dog Percy, not his real name. Percy was a sweet boy, but had this weird OCD thing where he had to poop in a certain spot every time. The spot was just around the corner of the building, which meant they were constantly walking right in front of my door. It did not bother me though, since they were usually pretty quiet about it and I never noticed them. But then everything changed when the fleas attacked. I was sitting on the couch petting Domino when I noticed something black in the white patches of his fur. Fortunately, we had already been through this once before when we lived with my sister, so I just knew what to do. I got out the spray and flea shampoo, bought some hypoallergenic flea medicine, last time he got a rash from the normal stuff, and gave him flea baths once a week. I would keep him in the laundry room while I sprayed the hazardous chemicals around the whole place and let the little suckers rot. I tried letting my landlord know about the fleas, but they refused to do anything. They said they would only call an exterminator about fleas if it was a tenant that had them without a pet. If you had a pet, it was your problem. I make a point of making sure this won't be the case whenever I move into another complex now. That is like saying they won't cover bedbugs because you have a bed. The little suckers started getting so bad that they were attacking me now too. The worst was when they would crawl into my eyes at night, and yes, you read that right. They would crawl into my eyes and die in there, and it would take days for them to finally flush out of my eyes. A week later, it would happen again. This went on for about a year, and for the life of me, I could not figure out why I was having so much trouble with these damn fleas. My poor boy had lost so much weight, which I did not notice at first because it was so gradual, but I found out that he was becoming anemic due to all the blood loss. One day I found a different flea product and decided to try that instead. It was a flea spray that you apply directly to the fur. Well, it seems I might have gotten some in his eye because a thick stream of ooze started forming in a line across his eye. I freaked out, not realizing what it was and thinking his eye had just split open. Since I did not have a car, I called my dad in a panic, got Domino in his carrier, and we waited for my dad to take us to the vet. It was the first time Domino had been in his carrier without crying. I was terrified. We got to the vet, the problem was diagnosed and they cleaned his eye. Then the hard truth came out. They told me about the anemia and how if the flea problem was not solved soon, they would kill him. My heart sank, I just could not stop crying right now in fact, my baby. My precious, sweet, lovable baby boy was slowly dying because of these tiny monstrosities. I had a choice to make, either take him home and allow him to continue to suffer or give him up. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I knew he would die if he kept living there. I took him to a no-kill shelter so that he would not be immediately put down because of his age after being deemed unadoptable. After all, most people wanted a cute kitten, not an 11-year-old skinny boy who would die in a few years. I went home and the flea problems continued. I sprayed, the complex sprayed, nothing was working. Without Domino there, I was not the primary source of food. Every time it seemed things might be getting better, they got worse. Everyone was baffled, since it should not be this hard to get rid of fleas without a pet running around. Then, due to financial situations, I could no longer afford that apartment and went back to my old studio at the end of the lease. Not sure how I managed to get the exact same place, but I did. The day of the move I made sure everything got washed and never had a flea problem since. A few days after the move, I learned the truth. It was Percy who had the fleas. The whole reason I could not get rid of them was because my neighbor did nothing to get rid of them. They were depositing them on my doorstep every time he went around the corner to do his business, and they were coming through the walls and vents. She thought animals just had them and the complex just backed her up. This story does have a bit of a bittersweet ending though. After a few months of making absolutely sure the little suckers were not coming back, I thought about getting another cat. I had considered going back to the shelter to see if Domino was still there, but I was terrified that he might not be with us anymore. They were a no-kill shelter, but when an animal is suffering the way Domino was, sometimes they have to make a call. I tried to tell myself it was because I could not afford the medical bills he would accumulate when old age really started sinking its claws in him, but deep down I was just scared that my baby boy was already up in heaven playing couch peekaboo with my grandpa. Fortunately, my manager at work overheard me telling a coworker that I was thinking of going to PetSmart since they had $1 adoption fees, and she told me about her cousin who adopts kittens when they are small and cute and then sends them back to the shelter once they reach adulthood. Apparently, their cousin just did not like the responsibility that actually comes with having a pet. I heard this, felt sorry for the little guy, and agreed to take him. So now Domino's honorary little brother Leo is happy and healthy with me. We have moved a couple of times and he's quite the handful, but I love the little brat. He is my little Leomon, the monkey butt. And Matsuyo, in case you're hearing this, thank you very much for posting this emotional story. The warning at the beginning was definitely justified because this was a shocker if you ask me. Thank you very much for posting. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.